Wonderful. Thank you, Anna, and thank you, Aaron, for being with me today. I'm really looking forward to having this conversation. What we'll be talking about is this site-specific project called Lithic, which is available for viewing in the Grand Hall. So if you haven't already had a chance to see this work, I definitely recommend that after the talk, you head down there and take a look. It's quite big, and it is immersive, and you're really able to kind of dive into the details. And we're going to talk about this work, but I thought we'd also take the opportunity to kind of look back at really the last 10 years of Aaron's practice and kind of look at the work that he was making before kind of building up to this work. And in kind of preparing for this project, it's really interesting to see certain kind of themes, imagery that have really been there from the beginning. And so we'll be able to kind of talk through all of these projects. There's also a lot of cool things that happened during COVID that maybe a lot of people didn't see or that have happened outside of Toronto. And so I really relish the opportunity to talk about these things and learn about them for this audience who maybe isn't as familiar with some of these really interesting aspects of your recent career. So thank you, Aaron. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, no problem.
I wonder if we could just first start about where you grew up and, what kind of inspired you to take a turn as towards the arts.
So I'm born in Toronto, and then I grew up in Markham and Pickering. And when I was really, really young, Markham wasn't developed the way it was now, and a lot of my time at that house, which was my grandparents' house, I would just go outside and explore nature and have that type of freedom. And the same thing as moved to Pickering, a lot of forest time, just a lot of outside time. But then also, while I would be inside, a lot of the content that I'd be digesting was somewhere between like fantasy and like science for children. So there's like those things come together in my practice.
Yeah. And so you start an undergraduate program at OCAD maybe in 2012, 2013. Is that right?
Exactly right.
And at that time, what's your focus? What was your primary focus at art school?
So I went to OCAD for photography and kind of open there. I didn't have a necessarily like very specific drive or like subject matter, but at the same time, I was very drawn towards like abstraction and trying to find something that's like not on my daily vision board in like actual life.
Yeah.
But it was pretty open, yeah.
Yeah. And so that kind of brings us here. This is an untitled work made in 2017 while you're still pursuing an undergraduate degree. And this is not traditional photography, but it is a collage. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about this work and where this came from and how collage kind of entered your practice.
So during my undergrad practice, I was sharing studio space. I wonder if this was like before or after. A handful of my friends shared studio space together. They didn't go to art school. They were just all painters and wanted to spend time together. In the same way, because I was in photography and all the time spent, something about collage seemed very like plausible in my life. And I started doing collage as I'm spending time with my friends outside of OCAD, but this one in particular, I just thought I like things that are bizarre and like out there. And for myself growing up, my mom didn't encourage Santa Claus. And I always thought it was it made me think now it's like bizarre to see anybody, not anybody with just Santa Claus, but specifically Black children. It's outside of, let's say, cultural history. And so I had this picture of Santa Claus with two kids from the Share newspaper. And I have so many old art and like culture magazines, and I put it together as like Santa Claus being this figure of like, I don't know, beauty and exceptionalism. So it's just to be bizarre, but I just have this collage. It's like kind of special to me as like one of the first things I've put together.
I really like it because if for people who are maybe more familiar with your practice and what you've been up to much more rich, like with imagery. Pulling, I think, with the project you did with us, almost 50 different sourced images combined to create that image. Whereas here, it's two. But what I really see as a through line here is this kind of critical and conceptual bent to the practice that which is really hard to achieve, I think, when you're only using two source images. And I think it's so interesting how impactful an artwork like this, taking the Santa Claus and the eyes of these two youth and like placing it above a painting by Manet. It's a really effective critique, I think. And
thank you.
That this was so early in your practice, I thought it was interesting to note here. And this is another work that I feel like is very much a through line, looking at the landscape, the rock, and the presence of the figure. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about this work that was also produced in 2017.
Yeah, I started doing a bunch of collages, like you showed the other one, and then I don't know how it came about, but I was invited to be a part of Contact in a show at the Contact Gallery in 2017. And this piece specifically, I was thinking about characters that I could relate to my family and just loved ones. So in this case, I was thinking about like my mother and looking for like blackness in magazines, but at the same time not trying to extract the people. I was trying to make almost symbolic characters. And so this is like, the top is, I don't know, soft, there's the pink and the tropical, and it implies that there's a person there. But also it's this very solid, it's like a literal solid rock. So in some ways I was thinking of the women figures in my life, yeah.
Yeah. So this is one of three works that you can actually see installed here as part of the Contact Gallery back in 2017. And then shortly after, 2018, this is right after you graduate and you win several prizes and awards upon graduation. And then this show happens kind of just after that at Mercer Union. And it is, again, a collage work. But there are kind of distinct elements to this. This is not a two-dimensional work. I wonder if you could talk us through a little bit about what we're seeing here.
Yeah, as time went by in my collage practice, I was thinking of ways to be like literal, like not just read my images from top to bottom, left to right, but also be able to talk about them almost literally. So I had these figures that were literally cut, ripped, and torn from their places of origin in like the physical magazine, but also to like represent people that are cut, ripped, and torn from their place of origin. And then I had this country album art from my grandfather, just because unlabeled, but I thought of it as it's a house in, put it in quotes, like the new world, and there's people from essentially all over the place, like in this new land together, and it's almost like a family in front of their home. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the elements that we're seeing here in front of this landscape, these are cut out and suspended. Right. On strings. So there's almost like a mobile element here, or a kind of literally pulling elements of the collage into 3 dimensions.
Yeah, it was nice when at the opening and people got to come into the space, the collage would move to some degrees, and it would make it seem like these figures have like literal life to them as they move around.
Yeah. And one of the things that I have found so interesting is we can actually see here, this is the same figurative element in the background that we've seen that was presented in the Contact show back in 2017. And so there is this way that your practice is also referencing yourself and kind of building an archive of images. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about that, about where these images come from, where they're sourced from.
Just about like more than 90% of everything is from like my grandma's house, my mom's house. I had lots of books on just like education for kids, and then there's like beauty fashion magazines I'm even thinking about like aunts, like all the caregivers in my life. And so I, as the person in my family, have been keeping so many things, almost with no goal, but at the same time, it's like to believe that there is like imagery that can come out of it. And in the same way, like these are not necessarily like individual pieces, and think about them as thumbnails as well, but they come like with me as like my practice evolves. Yeah.
So next up, this is a project that opened in X Space, I think, right before the COVID lockdowns. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about this project and some of the themes and imagery that you're working on here.
Yeah, coming from the last work and saying how I was trying to see it more literally, I thought, like many artists probably in the past, of like, let's make a black space, but in the collage elements, how do I incorporate simpler images, like not to necessarily work them so hard, but as well as more complex worked images, and also the space of not necessarily relying on like the person in the photograph. So it's almost like a simplification and something complex, but also like a push and pull between full personification and abstraction. So I had I have like a sketchbook of collages, individuals. There's a few that you'll probably see later in later work as well. And in the same way, I was just thinking about like family and like the characters that would recur in my life, because a lot of people or close ones that I know aren't necessarily like bound or anchored in a specific geographic location. Yeah.
And then I find this such an interesting image. We see here James Baldwin and I think Jackie Robinson and a figure from a painting by George Bellows, a guy on a do-rag branding. I wonder if you could speak a little bit about this, about the representation of these black male figures in pop culture, sports, and in some cases anonymous.
Yeah, as someone raised primarily by women, I thought, it's 2020 now. Where can my exploration go that's not fully reliant on those images that mom, grandma, aunts would buy for themselves? And I thought, it was really hard to, because I wasn't buying anything, and these were just things that would pop up in my life, but let's find black men and try to make an image of them all. In some ways, I was thinking about this shape being a brain. It's abstract, but to some degree. And then there's something just bizarre to me about these images. I feel a disconnect from whoever's capturing the image and like the person who's in the image, and there's something that resonated with me. So I thought it was an important moment to have not just a very neutral, like black image, literally, but to explore black men as the subject. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that continues, I think, here, Vince Carter dunking on everyone. This is, I think, another kind of pivotal moment. I wonder if you could talk about this work and the kind of the way that these athletic images kind of emerged and what they mean to you.
Yeah. I did a residency at the Nia Center for Arts, and it was very open, and it was their first residency before they even did all their renovations. And so I had a friend, and he said, "Can you do a commission for me?" And in my mind, I don't want to just take things from the internet or just use images from anywhere. So in the stipulation, I said, I need everything you've ever kept from your childhood that you want to make a collage out of. So he was a basketball fanatic, like a real fanatic, shoeboxes of magazines from his whole life. He was a bit older than me. And I thought what was fun, he had a Frosted Flakes box signed by Vince Carter with Vince Carter on the Frosted Flakes box, and that holds all these magazine pictures together. And I thought, wouldn't a nice present for somebody from Toronto as a basketball fan have the Toronto legend, for lack of a better way to put it, dunking over, it's like everyone else's feet. And there's something I got to explore with this, because it's so rare to have access to that many pages and to also do that much labor. So it's like a part of collage I want to start exploring, like the multiplicity of it all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think you mentioned to me earlier that one of the stipulations for doing this was that you got to inherit that archive, that those images, that you didn't just take what you wanted and then returned them, but they then became part of this archive.
Right. So this is only a very small fraction of everything that he gave me, and the those magazines have, like, to this day, even in the piece that's in the foyer, there's elements that come from his archive that are in my practice today.
Yeah. This is another one, Michael Jordan. And I think a lot of these images that were this work is made in 2021, were being kind of widely exhibited and part of this real momentum, I think, with your practice. I wonder if here we can see a blow-up of it in vinyl in a show that was curated by Betty Julian in 2021, and was also exhibited here in an exhibition in Los Angeles. I wonder if you could talk about that kind of moment around these works.
Yeah, in the same way it has this feelings of the Vince Carter piece, but thinking about basketball, the contour of a literal basketball in this collage as well. And I thought, if you're gonna make any type of collage about basketball in some regard, you have to do something about Michael Jordan. And it was kind of difficult because this is everything that he had in Michael Jordan. So that's to imagine every piece is from a different page of a magazine that he's had. And I didn't want to just leave the piece anywhere in the world. Somehow it's found a place in Chicago, which is nice. But like show to show, it's, I don't know, exploring collage, exploring the color, exploring like Black masculinity as well. It's like all the elements from the past that I continue to explore as I move forward.
Yeah. And then here, the first solo exhibition that you do at Zalecky Gallery, and this is a part of Contact, I think, as well. This is where you win the Gattuso Prize for Contact. This exhibition is also covered in Art Forum. It's reviewed in Art Forum by Gabby Moser, which I think, like, both of these are quite important accolades for an artist who's, having a solo exhibition like this. And the works here are, I don't know, maybe a little bit more abstract. I wonder if you could talk about.
I guess I just jumped a bit more into abstraction. It still has the other elements as well, like exploring images given to me by the women in my life and trying to achieve abstraction as well. And there's other things that I still play with, like multiplying limbs and the body. It's hard to speak to this one. In some ways, the times I do get to do a show at Zalecky, it feels like I get to fine-tune the explorations, which is really nice. And so it's like to explore abstraction and think about, I guess I just think about the body a lot. Like this one in particular, I liked that both of the eyes were, how do I say it, like alleged both parents. And in a way, it's like a figure with all these hands and all this ability that doesn't have eyes of its own. And in the mind space of this figure, it's almost empty, but it could be both parents there. And I started thinking about hands as a ability. So in some ways, like the more hands that you have, the more, imagine having 4 hands to do the dishes.
Yeah. I would have many more clean dishes.
Yeah, and I just like saw like the physical form as this thing that could have ability, and I thought in some ways there are times when like the mind and the body are in the same place. So in some ways, this mind has less ability, and the body of the figure can do so much. And I was trying to explore like different concepts I had of being. Yeah.
Well, and speaking of the hands, there were also these sculptural works, which are cast hands.
Yeah, I cast in like alginate mold and then filled it with plaster. These are my own hands, and this was like an exploration for me, and there's a dream I have to make the collage works in the third dimension and have like all these hands and all these limbs on a figure that looks like overwhelmingly capable of doing anything. Yeah, but I'd say, I don't know, it's a good explorative start, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even the work that you made here for McMichael, there are hands. So they become this kind of repetitive metaphor for making and cultivating and doing, which I think is an interesting thing to see because they appear so often. And then here, another project in 2020. This is at the Malvern Public Library in Scarborough. I think this is also part of a project that you're doing with the Doris McCarthy Gallery. And is this the kind of first large-scale public outdoor work that you're making?
Yes, the first time to make the project, I continuously crashed the computer. Like again and again until, even with this project downstairs, a lot of the large scale stuff is not to say like the computer can't handle it, but you really have to learn how to streamline everything because you could actually, it's like getting really good at using your kitchen as another kitchen metaphor. Some people are bad at using space, and then next thing you know, things are falling off of the counter. And in this case, the picture was falling off of the counter. But it's from the Rita Cox collection, Black, Caribbean, and African diaspora books. And I just wanted to make a piece that could get the library attendees, children that would go there because they have a youth zone there, just familiar with the images on the covers, and maybe that could be the entryway into seeing some of these books. And I had the books all categorized. There's 12 collages all put together, and the different collages have elements of books talking about different content, maybe a way to learn, maybe content about a story, or a way to learn a skill. Really anything under the sun, but I really wanted to have a space to highlight the books. So it's not necessarily like very abstract, but if you're in the library, you say, oh, I saw this green on like this book, should I pick it up and look at it? So it was a way to, I don't know, give the library attendees like an entry point into that content.
So were you physically cutting up the books, or was this digital manipulation?
I would, in the Doris McCarthy Gallery, I would photocopy book covers, somewhere around 100 different books. And then from there, I'd photocopy those and have multiples of the covers, and then I would cut up those and made physical paper collages, scanned them all again, and then brought them together on the computer to have this larger collage. Yeah.
And then right around the same time, 3:30, this group of works at the Doris McCarthy Gallery. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about these and the kind of beautiful unframed forms that we see here.
Yeah, because the original idea was the other work, but in getting to the other work, this work did happen. And it's weird to say, like, almost not fully thought out, but I really wanted to do characters, beings, things that were familiar to me. I'm quite fascinated with like folklore and anthropomorphic beings. So there's like from the beginning, it's like there's love stories, there's sports stories, there's history, violent history, more political history, like farmers' history, ways to learn. But it kind of goes through like any type of potential content for Black diaspora. So it's like really content that any person would make, but geared towards learning something specific. But it was an exciting way for me to say, not using my own personal archive and trying to work with the library.
Yeah, here, Known Unknowns. This is like there are several figures from music here. Lauryn Hill, Erykah Badu, Queen Latifah, and a work called Known Unknowns. And then these works were acquired, I think, for the Doris McCarthy Gallery, and are installed permanently in the campus, UT Scarborough?
I know to my knowledge, They have moved around.
Okay, cool.
There was a project I did with Massey College. They wanted to show half of them, and then the other half. So it ended up, you could say U of T, to my mind, Massey College and U of T Scarborough combined have
are the
acquired it.
caretakers
Yeah,
now.
they're caretakers, yeah.
And then this is a project that I just find so fascinating, and I'm sorry that it didn't come to Toronto. Brobdingnagian,
Brobdingnagian.
which is
It's a place in Gulliver's Travels where there's giants. I really wish I got to see this show.
yeah, me too. I feel like if there was ever a show that could be remounted, this would be a great one.
Yeah, so the way I set it up in my imagination was you walk into the space and to your left you would see the horizon, and it brought people into the space of like a grand nature space. And to my knowledge, if I was a viewer, you'd walk in and be like, I have no clue what I'm getting into. And then turn the corner, and these large collages of very like fantasy-based figures in the environment. So there's two. So I'll start with like the two in the corner. It's like there's a figure on, I say, a cliffside and a figure in a forest, and then to the left of that, it's a man with giant arugula or asparagus. Sorry. And then if you go to the next slides, and then these were, in my imagination, like structures, skyscrapers, like fantasy buildings that would exist in this. This is at the Bluffs, but would exist in like a by the sea scenario.
Mm-hmm. And this is another one, I think.
Yeah, it didn't make it to the show.
Okay.
But I did the Doris McCarthy residency, and so this was January. It's January, it's COVID, everything's frozen, and I was just exploring the Bluffs, the cliffside. And it was a way for me to say, like, I'm trying to make abstract photography and bring that with the collages. Yeah.
Well, I just find it so fascinating how much your own images take place in this. They become the setting for these collages to kind of animate. You know, here we have the Scarborough Bluffs, and then we see this forest, and these are your own large format photographs that are then populated with these really extraordinary elements that you've derived.
But yeah, I really wish I saw that show.
Yeah. And again, this figure was also a standalone artwork, but then it also becomes the figure with these arms in this forest setting out around. These were all taken at part of the residency at the Doris McCarthy House?
The forest is in Pickering.
Okay, cool.
And so I would be, as I was doing the residency, and then I'd visit my mother in Pickering, every so often I couldn't help myself but go to the forest. Looks nice. It's almost like warmer in the winter than everywhere else. And after any type of like ice rain, the forest collapses on itself. So it's just interesting, and I like the setting. Yeah.
And then is this that same horizon?
Yes.
Yeah.
So all the work was kind of around the same time, and I was exploring both like abstraction, the landscape, and my collage practice.
Mm-hmm. And then this work was also installed as part of MoCA's GTA biennial back in 2021 as well.
Yeah.
Installed here on the exterior of the building. So some people may have seen some of this work in Toronto, but I think Aaron and I are both sad that we didn't get a chance to see this show in person. And then this show at YYZ, Between Sea and Sky, I wonder if you could talk a little bit about this and about these kind of elements that we see on the floor here as well.
Yeah, funny enough, one of the books from the Rita Cox collection is titled Between Sea and Sky, and it got me excited to name a show Between Sea and Sky. And it was about a journey from the Caribbean to, I'll say, the Great Lakes region. And it's this young girl's story, and it's called Between Sea and Sky, and it's about like traveling and the journey of finding like place and becoming. So in this space, I made a moss mound, trying to explore sculpture. And it's almost like I'm trying to bring the environment I'm so familiar with, like inside as a piece. And on top of that, there are like collages made from like the same time period and more like interactions. As you see like the pink structure on the wood photograph, there's more of a interaction with my environment. Yeah.
And then you sent me a photo of this structure, but I think I put it in the wrong place. So we're going to see that later, the structure in the image on the left.
Okay.
We're going to encounter that
Yeah.
out of sequence. And then this other really exciting moment happens with the AGO purchase of this really extraordinary work here, holding my grandmother's oranges. Again, we see these hands emerging from the figure at the left and above this beautiful mountainscape. But I wonder if you could talk a little bit about this work.
Yeah, every so often a piece gets just way more time. And so this is, I could say, made 4, maybe 6 times over. It was originally, well, the start to make a 6-foot wide collage, it started to be for an exhibition called Come Up to My Room. And then from there, when the news to work and have a AGO piece came about, there's something about depth, like just a photograph wasn't doing for me. So it's 4 photographs put together with more magazines, and the photographs, or specifically the orange, the California orange kitschy art is from my grandmother's home. She had kitschy art throughout the house. She passed away 2019, and a lot of things we're getting rid of, and most people don't have any time for kitschy art. And I thought, maybe I do. And so for this piece, it's like to hold those things and have like symbols for the family, and then use the basketball memorabilia and arms to make a golem, like a protector of these things. Yeah.
Yeah, really wonderful, and so great to be in such a great collection. And then I found you had posted this on Instagram fairly recently, but this is a work that was produced back in 2023, and I just find it so fascinating. And I wonder if you could talk a little bit about this work and what we're seeing here.
It's driftwood I found in Chicago, wrapped in plaster. The little, what do I want to call it, the little twigs at the end of each stick are my fingers, cast in plaster. And it's leaning into that idea of making this this being with hands like that I've collaged, but make it physical. And given the opportunity, I stayed in Chicago for 3 weeks and worked towards having an install at Expo Chicago with Zaluki Contemporary. And I was trying to explore like the nature and seeing like where can I find myself in this place. I don't know what else to say at this moment. Yeah.
But this is just a really wonderful kind of maquette or like a working.
Yeah, it's the same pieces. I would walk the shore. Weirdly enough, the shore there is nothing like people don't go out and walk the same capacity we do. So it's kind of like a no man's land, a big vacant space. And I kind of made myself a self-directed residency, and I would explore there and see. Part of me thought I could use rocks, see if I could stack sticks and make a figure. But this is also coming right out of COVID. It was kind of a bizarre time. Yeah.
And then we have this project, which is a video piece and exhibition that was installed at the Robert McLaughlin Gallery back in 2023. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about this and kind of being so close to where you grew up, exhibiting at the RMG in Oshawa, which is not too far from Pickering.
Yeah, one, I really want to make nature work. I really like science fiction and the otherworldly as like its own genre, and I like seeing this again. We went over this, but seeing this again, a part of me is like, how did I get here? Because it's the focus of this show wasn't collage at all, and also to get it's a figure covered. It's me.
Can you start the video?
Yeah. It's me as the figure, but covered in thermal blankets. And seeing it this time again, I wonder really, how did I get my hand on thermal blankets in the first place to get the idea. But years ago, it's a fun little story. Years ago, and it was around the time of the ice storm, the crazy, crazy ice storm. I was at my mom's staying in like the guest room, and for whatever reason, I thought I felt a figure walk through the whole entire house. And that's not true. I was in bed, and it was like a sleep paralysis moment. But we've always made jokes, my mom and I, about the house being haunted. And since that time, I was like, oh, there's no haunting in the house, no extra presence feeling. And in some ways, this is somewhere between like a performance and experiment that's like a play with the spiritual. But yeah, if we could see a clip of the video.
I don't know if we're able to. I don't know if the video embedded properly when I switched computers, but it's really amazing because the film is played in reverse, and so you have the wind kind of moving through and moving around this thermal blanket, but then it's happening in reverse, so it feels like you're watching like Quicksilver or Mercury, and then it is completely abstracted and it's billowing and moving, and then every once in a while you just see like your legs as you're navigating this space. So if we're not able to get the video going right now, I'll be sure to put it on the other computer at the end of the talk, because it's a really interesting, and as this is your first time working with a kind of time-based.
Yeah, like I've worked in like film adjacent things, like for like work, and friends of mine have done film projects essentially like since we've been teenagers. So the skills to some degree were there, or like the knowledge about the technology, but I wanted to make something that felt like an amorphous blob, like in just not from this world at all. We'll get there when we get there.
Yeah. And then this is, again, some of the kind of other work that was being shown, collaged on these large pieces of plywood here and here, with the kind of mountains that are now repeating. This is a motif, again, we've seen in a few of the earlier images.
Something about mountains are peaceful, snow peaks.
Yeah.
And in this space, it wasn't just like the sound of wind. I had a theremin, or I still have the theremin, and it's the sound of the theremin to play off of the figure moving. So it's as if the figure is making these ooh-woo sounds, for lack of a better way to say it. And I really wanted to achieve like a cold, peaceful space for this summer exhibition. And then I was surprised, and it was a pleasant feeling that kids would go into this space and just look at the collages and hear the sounds of nature in the dead of the summer. Yeah.
And then this, your next solo exhibition at Zaluki, with another one of these incredible vinyl pieces in the background. I wonder, what are the source imagery that we see here?
The source imagery has come up a few times in the past, images, but it's just a scan of land. With different, there's like infrared, or you can use different read different light to scan the land. So this is just like a desert, just rotated 90 degrees counterclockwise. But in this space, I did a show, and I was really trying to make like a body of work that was angels, somewhere between angels, ghosts, and aliens. And I thought of biblically accurate angels, and the metal was inspiring me. So the paper, you can't really tell here, but the pink paper is on silver paper, so it has a sparkle to it when you see it in person. I'm just trying to like also departure from like fully relying on like people or like specifically my own identity, and seeing like what would I create with more fantasy to say, yeah.
But it still has that kind of same amazing energy and that sweep of some of the basketball imagery that we've seen, and all of these hands, and now instead of a kind of bouquet of arms, we have these amazing wings here. And then this work, which I think we've seen several of these elements before, the guy with the guitar, some of these plants. This is the same stalk of asparagus that was in the works from Vancouver. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about this work as well.
Yeah, also the same on the left in the middle, the same mountains from the last show. In the vinyl on the wall, the 5-piece cactus on the bottom left is like throughout that piece as well. And this was really fun, this piece to me. It has the guy playing guitar that was in the Mercer Union show. And it's kind of an imaginary, like Pickering in the Forest House.
Yeah.
In the forest that I grew up near, there's a handful of like old rickety homes. And this one that I painted with one of my friends, I painted it magenta, something I thought, magenta with the green could feel life to it. But this area in Pickering is called Valley Farm. It's a valley that had farms in it on a little river. But if we go back to the collage, I was just imagining that space, so many different birds, even though I'm like moving through time on what exists in that sense. And then there's a bunch of little bug stickers that are squishy that make it feel like cutesy and like youthful. Mm-hmm. And I guess I was trying to find this place of like really just like the found collage. I like the idea of finding like a wet magazine and then it dries and then you open it and it rips apart, and almost to say like that's the piece, like that experience itself. Mm-hmm. As a piece, but in some way, it's like this is me with like my secret shack home in the forest, and it's nothing glamorous, but like it's fun and peaceful and kind of exciting.
Yeah. And this is now in the collection at McMaster University. I think Betty Julian acquired it.
Yeah.
Which is a great home for this. Really wonderful work. And then this is a show that you were part of at the Darling Foundry. Black Summer '91, which I didn't get a chance to see. So I wonder if you could talk about your work here, Race, Death newspaper comic that you made. And kind of, if you could, for people who don't know about this exhibition, if you could talk a little bit about the theme of that exhibition and then the work that you created as part of that.
So when I was reached out to be a part of this exhibition, I was told, it's like, oh, you could come. I really like your collage work, and you can do whatever that speaks to the exhibition. The exhibition called Black Summer 1991 was about specifically the Montreal race riots in 1991. But after I did research on top of getting all the source material from the curator, I was quite surprised there's a concept or literal happening of race riot in 1991 throughout the whole continent, but yeah, throughout the whole continent, America, Canada included. And in this, I do have a couple of collages that I had made prior that are in this collage, but it's a diptych. One side's in French, one side's in English. And instead of doing like a abstract piece, I thought it was really important to have the newspapers highlighted, even though the newspapers were my research material from the curator. In some ways, I'm like, oh, this is the most digestible, straightforward content for the viewer. This piece is 14 feet wide, and so you can go right up to it and read it. And at the same time, it's overlaid the X-Men, like Marvel's X-Men comic from 1991, which also talks about race riots. So I thought there's some interesting parallels there, but I was really focused on give the viewer something to read and something to learn. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, it's so important, and the fact that the Darling Foundry did this whole exhibition and invited artists to make work in response to this is a really interesting project. And now we're back to this kind of quicksilver material that we saw in the film and is now here taking a form of a sculpture. I wonder if you could talk about Sky Mirage.
The hope, let's say it's a to be continued type of piece, but the hope is the figure that's in the video, to have that be like a free being of its own. In my mind, it was becoming It was becoming a blimp, like somewhere between a blimp and a flying saucer that this figure was becoming, and like looking at ways to explore sculpture. And I was finding out like a lot of people's entryway into sculpture in the past was inflatables as a like low risk, like cheap way to make something large. But yeah, there's something about that silver that seems so otherworldly to me, and there's a setup and display that I still believe that can happen to make the viewer feel like outside of this world.
Yeah.
Yeah. So coming from the picture you saw of it inflated to this one, literally 5 minutes after taking it outside, the wind ruffled it up and had it pop. But it's still something weird because we never see like that silver, almost like we never see mercury in real life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a reflective thing. It becomes this really amazing reflective surface. And then here, Into the Wild, the most recent project with the Zuluki here, mixing your work with some other artists, but has this amazing vinyl piece. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about what we're looking at.
So many things, like I'm in one place, I'm trying to bring that place somewhere else, and between working from all this like nature inspiration and then working with like animals to make collages, in this show I was making that push and pull, and this vinyl collage specifically I was like, can I make like trees? I went to Florida recently-ish, around before the show happened, and I was really fascinated with like banyan trees and how they have like knees coming out of the water. But in some sense, it's like this is like inspired by banyan trees with references to actual animals, but there's no tree element in this collage. It's like the stalk is of an elephant, and then the base is a sculptural piece, like an old body, and there's the more bird, alligator, another bird, and some rocks in the background. But yeah, trying to make this like nature space that almost doesn't exist from my collection or my archive. Yeah.
And this is the work that was on the wall opposite.
Yeah, a lot of the elements or like the skills I developed to make the piece downstairs, like this was like a learning curve for that, like extending a physical collage into the digital space, and then having that be represented in like a gallery space. There's so many parts of this. It's hard to even start. There's like little parts, little collages of animals, amphibious things that could swim and fly throughout as if it's like deep under the ocean, but also the black background and let's call it the large succulent there. I guess I just really trying to stay in this space of like, oh, my nature experience and trying to fantasize that. Yeah.
And then this is brand new. This opened in February at Union Station, a project by band, curated by Josephine Dennis, and it's called Lazarus Contained. And so this is available to see until the end of the summer, I think.
Yeah, till August 31st.
On the facade of Union Station, a series of banners in between these colonnade. And I wonder if you could talk a little bit about this and the work that you produced.
So the collages from the show at Zuluki are contained in this, and a lot of those collages are, it's like things that have like invigorated me in a sense. So it's like Lazarus Contained, I'm thinking about like resurrection, but not some grand resurrection, almost as if like something that's like coffee times 10. Mm-hmm. Like really, really, really invigorating. So in this collage, there's some food parts, there's like a piece of ginger, there's some thyme throughout the whole thing, and we also have the collages from that last show, but I also put in like stickers that I collected while in my time in OCAD from Chinatown, and then there's toys from my cousin, Ninja Turtles, just because it was a part of, I don't know, the communion. Mm-hmm. Of being young. So there's all these like memories that I think of as life. In the background even though it's cold season, in the background is a photo from the bluffs as well from that time at that residency. But I just wanted to contain life in like a lively place. But yeah, I think that's what I could say to that.
Yeah. I mean, I love this juxtaposition of the aquarium, like right on the edge of the lake, because it is also this kind of absurd thing, right? The lake is a source for life on its own, and then to have this here, but as we're seeing, it's like it feels like a different season, and it does feel like your own constructed landscape and environment is kind of contrasted against the natural world beyond. And this was a work that you were actively working on, actually, when we came here. And this is, when we invited you to do this project, one of the, that we're going to talk about now, one of the things that we offered was for you to dig around in our own library with some material that was being discarded. It was being deaccessioned for various reasons, condition in some cases and relevance in the other. And so this is a rental car that I had packed up with some of these books that went on to become a part of this work, Lithic. And so I wonder if you could talk a little bit about that, about the kind of making of this project and maybe some of the things that you found in that source material.
Yeah, I'd say like this is the third larger piece that I've made, and every time there's a larger piece, it comes, interestingly enough, like a specific book collection or specific body of something comes into my home. I sift through it and see the world that can be made with that, and then that gets cut up, brought digitally. But in this one in particular, because I'm working on the other piece right after, and the other piece kind of piggybacks off of the show at Zulucan Contemporary. But this, in a way, it's like completely new. There's a couple things that I've had from my own archive. You could see it when you're in the foyer. It's really hard to tell from the seating here. But there's like a mango in the background and a pepper that I've scanned from home. But in this, it's almost as if from everything we just went over, I wanted to create the landscape that all the parts would take place in some way. Called this lithic not just because it's like of a rock, but because thinking about like lithography and making like a stamp of like a moment. So there's something that's like harsh and grounded about this. So I called it Lithic, but it still has like the basketball hand coming from the sky, almost as this like a hand of God or something. There's the orchid in the middle, and it's like a faded, you could hardly see it, but it's a clamshell jewelry holder that's opened up. I'm trying to do this thing between like the otherworldly, without giving it a name, an otherworldly and like a land that can be explored. There's so many parts in this. I don't even know where to start.
I have some close-ups here too that people can see. And like here, this is the pepper that you talked about. I think. And then we have another one of these orchid flowers here as well. But the scale, and there's like a little Black Panther sticker here as well. So I do hope that when everybody goes up, you get a chance to look closely at this. But I wonder if you could talk a little bit about this form, this kind of mountain form, and what are the various things that are creating it?
I'm kind of rock climbing's in right now. I don't really know how to say it, but like it kind of just is. I'm not doing it. It would be nice, but we'll see. I don't know. But yeah, rock climbing's in right now, and so that was just in the forefront of my mind a lot, like having peers that do that a lot. And time and time again, when I am making a collage in nature, it's almost as a way to be like, does the character almost equals me in the depictions? It's like a peaceful place and like a place of exploration. And in some capacity, it's like the more I can collage and the larger the environment is, it's like the more there is like space for exploration. And so throughout this collage, there's like the person in the raft at the bottom, or in the top not top, in the middle to the right, there's a like caravan that would be a winter explorer. You could see it quite well if you're actually in the foyer. But all these elements of like exploration, I just think about being a part of exploring the land to learn. Oh yeah, nice. There's like ways of exploring the land to learn, but also at the same time, it's like the parallel. Like I got to come up here and see the landscape. So it's kind of like a play off of looking out the window when we walk. I think it's like one of these hallways, like looking out the window. But also it's a like amalgamation of like adventure here. Like all the books, there's this like group of 7. There's a few like Canadian things. Like nature seemed to be important, but there's something about like the landscape and like overcoming the journey of landscape that all the books cover. So I'm trying to put that together in a narrative. Yes.
And then these hands that you can probably see better in this image up at the left, as do you see these as like the kind of architect of the landscape? Like that these hands are what has kind of shaped and created this world in this?
It's true. Like I'd say it's true in a way. There's a push and pull for me always to like depict myself in my content. But then as I was developing this piece, the focal point was the rocks. That's the start, but then the background, the sky, things come together after the fact. But as you said, like architect, it's almost, I had to say like make sure it's me and my hand and I did this, yeah, as a almost reminder.
Yeah. Well, we are so excited to have this work up as part of the Contact Festival this year, but really it was surprising to me how the resonance that this work has, even with our own collection here. Formally, I think about the works of people like Lauren Harris and his fascination with mountains, but also the way that the mountain became for him a way of, not just exploring nature, but also exploring this kind of otherworldly spirituality. Lauren Harris was a theosophist. So I think it's so neat that you've approached this and gotten to a similar exploration, but in such a different and unique way. And for us, it's such a treat that it's also speaking to our own collection that you so carefully mined for imagery and inspiration. And so this is getting people right up to date with Aaron Jones, basically 2017 to 2026. And I wonder if you just have any final thoughts about what's next and what we can expect.
A slow summer.
Yeah.
That's one thing, yeah. I really hope to more formally get into sculpture and other practices. We went over pretty much like 10 years of stuff and practicing anything for 10 years. Like I just thought 100 hours every year over 10 years is the 10,000 hours. So it makes me think like anyone could get good at anything if they give it a good amount of time. But yeah, so I don't necessarily think about any grand creation at the moment, but I am attending the Masters in Visual Studies at U of T this fall. So
Wonderful.
That's like the next thing.
So stay tuned, basically, everybody, because there is going to be some really cool things to come. I want to thank you for being in conversation with me today. This was such a treat to kind of get to know your practice better, and I'm sure that the audience feels the same way. So thank you. And I think, yeah.
Yeah. Cool.